Selvaggi Hernandez is an autistic author, educator, occupational therapist, and international speaker. She was also the first openly autistic person elected to serve in a government position in the United States. Sarah is passionate about occupational science, sensory processing, and autistic identity. Her vision remains centered on the creation of identity affirming autistic contexts to support neurodivergent development. She runs the popular social media site, The Autistic OT. Today, Sarah is going to talk about self advocacy and sensory. So, in the disability community, the three components of self advocacy include knowing yourself, knowing what you need, and knowing how to get it. However, many people in the autistic community are denied even these basic opportunities due to marginalization, bias, bias, and ableism. Additionally, many autistic adults are self diagnosed because of continued barriers to accessing assessment. In order to support empowered living as an autistic, developing these self advocacy skills becomes a primary importance. As humans, we are sensory beings. Everything we do and experience is filtered through our sensory systems. Autistic people experience sensory more intensely. They often report being hypersensitive or hyposensitive to sensory experiences both inside their body and coming in from the world around them. Therefore, in order to begin the first steps of self advocacy, that is knowing yourself, it is important for autistic and other neurodivergent people to understand how their body takes in and manages sensory based information. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Rakshita and Truhap. Rakshita, anything you ever need, you know that I'm there for you. I'm so glad to be back here. I'm so glad to be presenting. And I'm going to get right into it. All right. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the sensory of self-advocacy, and I'm going to share kind of, since this is about my autism, I'm going to share a little bit about my journey and how sensory processing and understanding the way that I take in information has really helped me to advocate for myself and stand strong and true in the spaces that I need to. So we talked about this in the little blurb that Rakshita read. What is self-advocacy? And in the literature, it kind of will go very broad. It says, know yourself, know what you need, and know how to get it. And what I was really struck by was this first part of the journey, which is knowing yourself. And what does that mean? How do you know yourself? This is something that I personally have questioned throughout my life, because a lot of times when I'm shaping who I understand who I am or how I understand I am, I'm doing it by the reflection of other people. And I realized that most of the ways that I understood who I was as an autistic person, and all the different roles that I inhabit was based on feedback that other people were giving me. And so when I thought about, well, okay, if I need to know myself, what is self, then I need to accept myself. What is self-acceptance? Well, when I started like reading about self-acceptance, another thing popped up to me. So my first problem was, number one, the way I understood myself was the way other people saw me. And two, the way that I have been guided to accept myself usually involves words or things like, in spite of my differences or despite my differences. And that never resonated. It doesn't feel right to me, because I see myself as a whole, perfect, beautiful, amazing human being. And so I had to ask them, what do you mean my weaknesses? What do you mean my differences? And so when we talk about self-acceptance and we talk about it according to the medical model, meaning the way that doctors and the medical community see autism, it's kind of a bummer. Like, it kind of makes me a little sad inside, because what, according to society, I have to accept about myself are things like communication challenges, rigid interests, my sensory, like I'm sensitive. Um, but all of these things were kind of framed and phrased within, I need to accept this about myself and I need to fix it. Well, the thing about being autistic, and the thing about the way that I understand myself is, number one, I don't give anybody permission to have hierarchy over me, to tell me what's wrong about me, to tell me where I'm deficit. Um, First of all, not going to do that. The second thing is that I realized that some of the things that people were saying about autism and saying about me, about the way that I communicate, the way that I connect, and the way that I found community, were really contributing to a negative sense of self. So, in fact, the opposite of the very first part of the journey to self advocacy, self acceptance. Um, and then when you read in the literature and you read about things, you listen to autistic people and our experiences, you'll find something called masking. We talk about that a lot. And what does this lead to? So if I have to accept myself and I have to accept your judgment of me and make adjustments, so pretend or mask, to be acceptable to you, what does that lead to? And I'm going to go to the next slide. I'm going to pause here for a moment. I'm going to show you two illustrations by an amazing Welsh illustrator. Her name is Kate Jones, and she is going to be presenting here the next round, hopefully with me. But Kate and I actually sat together and we thought about the things that have been said to us over and over again, to create an, an unacceptance of ourselves. So stop being so sensitive. You're over dramatic, quiet hands. Um, if you loved me, you would do so many things. Um, Nobody will hire you if you act the way you do. And all of those messages not only led to a lack of self acceptance, which kind of paused my ability to self advocate, but it also led to mental unwellness. It led to increased anxiety, increased depression. It created barriers for me in order to engage in the things that I love in the ways that I love them. And so, um, when I consider this research and the absolute horrid impact of not accepting who you are and the way that you take in your information, um, it's clear this is not the way to do it. The way to do it is to unmask and to be authentic with our autistic selves. So I'll spend a little bit more time here, but Kate and I, and actually other members of Neuroclastic, we started having conversations on how do we support unmasking and why is this important? Well, I'll leave this up for a moment, and talk about just a little bit why it's important to me. Rashida mentioned that I was the first openly autistic person elected to a government position in the United States. That was a couple of years ago, and I am currently actively in a lawsuit with the government because my accommodations were disrespected. And throughout this whole process, it's been very difficult for me to stay centered in who I am and accept who I am, and that I have a right to be here, and that I have a right to experience how I experience. I have a right to communicate how I communicate, and I have a right to connect in the ways that I connect. Um, and it is an anchor for me during these times where it's very like essentially I'm suing my town and the state government, to have them come at me and pull apart who I am and try to say that I'm less than, or that I didn't really need supports, that I didn't need the accommodations that I was asking for, um, that I was sensitive, that I'm overdramatic, all of these things. If I accepted that, I would never get to the next part of advocacy. Why? That is unacceptable to me for many reasons. But one is that autistics should be seen, heard, and valued, have all the seats at the table if they want to be. We deserve to be here. And if I listened to their feedback, then I would say to myself, you don't deserve to be here. And you don't deserve to advocate, and you don't deserve to push forward. And that's simply not true. So what do you do? How do you approach this? These are some of the wonderful conversations, things that I've said, that I say to myself, and I have my friends say to me, and we share with each other. Um, Things like, tell me about your special interests. You deserve mercy. Enjoy your space. One of my favorite, there's no wrong way to move. You can rebel. I will respect your no. And my personal favorite is, you can change your mind as many times as you need to. And these kind of phrases really reinforce what it means, excuse me, sorry, to be autistic, but it also highlights the importance of validating your sensory experiences. So when I talk about sensory experiences, very quickly, it's the way that we take in information outside and inside of our bodies, and how our brain processes that information. And we know that autistic people experience that deeply and differently. One of the most important things that you can do for yourself is just to validate, I like this experience. I don't like this experience. One of the last the last batch of presentations, when in this presentation, Taryn showed us his poster of the things that he likes and he doesn't like. It was so clear. It was so beautiful. And so again, validating that not only do you like and not like these things, but it has a real impact on your brain. It has a real impact in the way that you understand yourself, you know yourself, and that leads to being able to advocate for yourself. So, first thing, validate your sensory experiences. For me personally, I couldn't show you everything here, but I am surrounded by my stims and my fidgets, things that really bring me a lot of joy, because I need them. I need these things to help regulate, especially during these times of difficult self-advocacy, where the people who are, who I'm suing they're it's very mean. And so I need to regulate myself, because I have a right to be here and communicate in the way that I communicate, and they're going to hear me. So the second part is validating communication. Communication comes in so many different ways, and I have loved today with Truhap and seeing all the different ways that people communicate through their AAC devices, through art, through music, through poetry, through metaphor, speaking, non-speaking, the way we hold our bodies, the way we flap our hands, that's communication. And we have a right to be heard, period. And then the third thing for me is always validate community. I am whole because of my community. I know how important it is for autistic people when they find people who you're like, oh, you're like me. Oh, that's so similar to me. You feel connection. You know that you're not alone. And that is so powerful. So when validating community, validate your communication, and validating your sensory experiences are my three go-tos when we talk about knowing yourself. Um, the reason that I picked up on these three is it's about you. It's always about you. Knowing yourself, knowing what's important to you. What Mariah mentioned about boundaries. Mariah, I need your help. um, but you know, we have been taught that it's others' expectations and that we're supposed to meet other people. No, you meet yourself. And oh, I'm so excited when you do because we're all such beautiful people. Um, that is my little 10-minute thing. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Always supporting me. You are my biggest, I just love you. If you want to get a hold of me, I am on Facebook, primarily the Autistic OT. But I love connecting with people. And so, yes, that's it. Thank you.